In that kind of environment, there could be more secrecy, a little bit less trust. The system will never be able to fill that hole for you. It always wants more, more, more. What's the happiest job in the world and how does it compare to yours? Mentors and supervisors can make the biggest impact to our sector. This is an article from Forbes that talks through 8 lesser known red flags of a toxic work environment. And I'm going to see how many of these line up with a scientific workplace. Red flag number 1, a lack of transparency. A major red flag for a toxic work environment is a lack of transparency, because every employee needs to know how a company they work for is doing and how what they're working on is contributing to the larger picture. Red flag number 2 is unmotivated co-workers. If there's ineffective communication, low trust and respect for one another, stifle growth, cliques and biased treatment, these could all be a red flag that you're working in a toxic environment. These first 2 red flags, a lack of transparency and unmotivated co-workers, go hand in hand. A lot of science labs are ruled by intellectual property, and different researchers in the same group are working on different projects with different intellectual property. So legally, they shouldn't be collaborating. They shouldn't actually know what's going on in the other research project, because there's all of these other intellectual property implications on who owns the discovery if it ever goes to market. Legally, they can't know what's going on. In that kind of environment, there could be more secrecy. There could be a little bit less trust. Doesn't really breed an environment of collegiality. It breeds an environment of very competitive internal politicking. This is kind of baked into the cake when you're trying to push the envelope and you're trying to innovate and you're trying to win the race on a global level. Yes, this is clearly a red flag that the work environment is not a stress-free one, but this should not be the deterrent for you to go into science. This is kind of built into the fabric of the industry that it's very, very competitive, but it's also very, very exciting. It's a dual-edged sword. Red flag 3, no recognition for your work. Employees aren't given recognition for their work, which diminishes motivation and morale over time. And 4, the manager has a poor attitude. A negative boss can make even the most enjoyable job miserable. So those 2 things are connected. No recognition for your work. Recognition likely comes from your boss in some capacity. And 4, manager has a poor attitude, however you want to define poor attitude. This is where I think mentors and supervisors can make the biggest impact to our sector, because again, you need to set a culture of acceptable failure, of learning from failure, of digesting and analyzing the outcome from any single failure, because there's going to be a lot of them. You need to be that emotional bedrock for the people that you're supervising and hiring. And it's a very big job. I can't say I'm particularly great at it. I'm trying. I'm doing the best I can. But a lot of supervisors just don't have the time or the capacity or the training to really engage in that. Something like mental health first aid. This is all something that supervisors and bosses could really benefit from, and I think is a core part of a lot of leadership training that could be taken. The recognition for your work, you have to think about where that is going to come from in any job that you're in. Luckily for us, a lot of the recognition is in the public domain. If you're publishing papers, it's there. You can Google it. If you're giving a conference talk, you can see the conference talk many a time on a recording on YouTube or TED Talk. The artifact is there. Your LinkedIn post is there. Your paper is there. So recognition is one of the most transparent things. So then it's not the extrinsic recognition of your work, is that intrinsic recognition that you're doing a good job. Yes, should come from your boss at some level, but it needs to be coming intrinsically from yourself. You need to know within your bones what counts as success to you, because the system will never be able to fill that hole for you. The system is one that always wants more, 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 and all workplaces want more, more, more. So having a good center of balance as to what you consider to be success and what kind of people you choose to surround yourself with, that is what I would focus on. Red flags 5 and 6 are also connected. No clear direction on your projects. Managers aren't giving you a clear sense of direction. There's some level of micromanaging or not enough micromanaging, and unstable work-life balance. If the project direction keeps changing, timelines will start spiraling out of control. You won't be able to meet deadlines. Before you know it, you don't have a good work-life balance. And this is also connected to red flags 7 and 8. Scope creep, where the slow process over time, more work, unnecessary requests, or expand beyond your contract's initial bounds. And it could fold onto the request to multitask more and more and more and more. During meetings, you should be doing this other thing, and it's never enough, never enough. This is all something that's very commonly found in scientific environments. Work-life balance or a lack of it, always needing to do more beyond what you're asked. So having to multitask to be able to fit everything in. But if I can push back for a moment on how much of a red flags these supposed red flags are, the idea of scope creep is an interesting one. In science, you are the one, you should be the one to define the scope. That is what people are hiring you to do. They're hiring you to be the intelligentsia that will push the thinking envelope forward in your discipline. You should be the one to constantly be expanding the scope. And this ties back to another red flag where there's no clear direction. Over time, as the boss, I should no longer have to give a scientist that much direction because they should be telling me how they can be most effective at their jobs. If you're feeling like you're being micromanaged a lot and there's no clear direction on projects and the scope of what you're doing doesn't seem to be within your control, yet you could be in a toxic work environment. But secondly, I think you should think about why you don't have more control over your projects, why you are not dictating the scope and the parameters of what you're doing day in, day out, because you should be aspiring to be a leader in the field. Think about what you can control, how much of that is really within your grasp, and how much of that is something that you should really think about finding a new workplace to let you thrive in at a higher level. Amidst all of this talk of negativity, of all these jobs that aren't particularly great and toxic and detoxing and quiet quitting, loud quitting, let's look at the other end of the spectrum. What is the happiest job in the world? Because according to this new research, you get to see the fruits of your labor. Construction workers have the highest level of self-reported happiness of any major industry category, according to a survey of over 57,000 employees from 1,600 companies. And the reasons that they cite construction work as being the most happy profession: there is an interpersonal element of the job on construction sites, widely recognized for strong bonds among on-site personnel. They also have the ability to access a wide swath of professional organizations and other analogous industries to help them upskill. They can build meaningful relationships with co-workers. Can we take that lesson away from construction work and imbue it into scientific workplaces? Can we foster a more collaborative environment? Can we give people more visibility as to the different types of skills they can learn? Can we also allow them to feel like they're always moving towards something, that they're never stuck, they're always progressing towards innovation? I think these are the ingredients that we can take on board in any kind of work that we're doing. And in science, we certainly shouldn't all quit, irrespective of the difficulties in overcoming failure and having to mitigate all of those insecurities and emotional toll. I think keeping these three things in mind, feeling like you're moving towards a direction of any sort, being part of a collaborative team, and being able to learn something new every single day, I think these things will allow us to thrive and survive for much longer in these very important sectors in science, discovery, and innovation. The ideas of job interviews and how scientists in particular struggle with job interviews and how we can bounce back, you can find that video linked up here. I'm Jack. Hope to connect with you again in the next episode.